monster in your ears, boy.
It's what you harder at the ice out the neck. It's what you harder at the ice out the neck. When I'm in my zone, bitch, I get my respect. Call me bumping Johnson.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Texas Sports World. Bless you, brother. We are your hosts. That is Isaac. I am Ethan, and we are here to talk a lot about sports. So I hope you're here for a good time. First things first, how was your day today, dude?
You know, there was a little bit of this, a little bit of that going on. So pretty good, pretty bad, yeah.
Yeah, pretty okay, pretty even,
Decent.
even kill.
I've had worse days.
Yeah, it was probably better than mine. So just, be happy, be happy, Pappy.
Somebody would kill to be in your position.
I would kill to be in a lot of other people's position too. So.
That's not what you got to focus on. You got to focus on something else.
I know. We're good, though. It's a good day. We're here on the podcast. We're going to talk a lot. We got a lot of Texan stuff to get into. And also, I figured, we could also get into maybe there are some coaches out there in the SEC that, are coaching for their job this year. I don't think that's out of the realm of possibilities for a lot of guys out there. If you're not the Kirby Smart, Steve Sarkisian, Kalen DeBoer.
Thank you.
Lane
Oh, well,
Kiffin.
Maybe. KDB could be on the hot seat. Depends.
That's why. Okay, so yeah, if you're not, the upper echelon, Mark Stoops, Heupel, I could argue. I think you could have an argument for Heupel there. Brent Venables. I think there's definitely a conversation to be had there. So yeah, we're gonna get into some of that. We're also gonna, and if you've been following us on Twitter, we got into a little bit of a discussion with Big Sarge over there on Texans Media, and needless to say, we disagreed. We disagreed on a few things there, and I think we're gonna bring it here and discuss it, the two of us. So you were just reading along. You didn't really get to punch in there, so I'm be excited to hear what you have to say, especially in response because you were texting me about it. So we'll see what you got to say about that. So what do you want to get into first today?
Let's get into the Texans, little Texan stuff. We can segue into the little Twitter incident that you had got into, and then we'll move on to all the other stuff. I think so far, CJ Stroud's still not throwing. So let's just jump right in there. I don't know what the hell's going on with him. I don't think anybody knows what the hell's going on with him. Miko's saying everything's fine and that, shoulder doesn't hurt or is not concerning or whatever the case may be. But I think that's bullshit. There's so many conspiracies that are going on.
It's getting worse. It's getting worse like every day. Like it's not even like the Texans media anymore. And there's some media members out there that are kind of toting the company line, if you will. They're not, they're in a lot of ways when it comes to Popovich. There's a lot of people that I feel like are giving him way too much benefit of the doubt. Now, I also had a discussion in the DMs yesterday with shout out to Sideline Sarah, another Texans Twitter person. We had a discussion about Cole Popovich, and she sent me some interesting stuff, and we kind of got into that, and I'll bring up some of the stuff she sent me that maybe could ease both of us a little bit, but I don't think it really gives us any good feelings, because ultimately we don't know who he is. You can have coaches you had coaches telling us that Slowick was really smart, and now look where that got us. You know what I mean? So I don't really care about what everybody. I need to see. Seeing is believing for me right now when it comes to this Texans offensive line and the coaches they have coaching them. And right now, outside of D'Amico, and you could maybe throw in Matt Burke. Outside of those two guys, I'm not sure. I'm not sure there's a whole lot of what's the word I'm looking for? Guarantees, if you will. Because I think we both can see that the Texans secondary, the Texans defense is going to be a top 5, top 10, unit in the NFL next year, and that shouldn't really be a surprise to anybody. Now, when it comes to the offensive side of things, I don't know, and that has a lot to do with Cole Popovich, in my opinion.
Yeah, for sure. I think, man, I don't know. There's so much within the fan base, at least, unwarranted, like, what's the word I'm looking for? They like are super giddy up about everything. They're like, they kind of forget about what's ever happened in the past, and they're just like, this is like people are saying this offensive line is going to be good,
Right.
and like, I'm just not. I'm not seeing how. I'm not seeing how. All the guys that we got are rejects from other
From
awesome
other teams.
offensive
Right.
line, not just other teams, also bad offensive lines. So like, it's not like we're getting good guys. Somebody had brought up something interesting that you got to overpay for good offensive linemen, or that offensive linemen in free agency aren't worth the money that you got to spend. But for us, they are. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, we can't go out there now, especially with the stuff that's going on with CJ and the Ravens game. There was a clip of him
Yeah.
getting tackled.
Yeah. We can show that right now. We'll show that. I'll show
Yeah,
that.
let's
We'll
show
show
that
that.
right now.
This is shout out to Sideline Sarah again for giving me this this video here. So this is the play. This is the play where people. This is the play where a lot of people think that CJ really started having his injury,
Shoulder
his
injury.
shoulder, whatever you want, elbow, something. Because I was listening to freak, what's his name? I can't remember. I can't remember. I was listening to somebody earlier today, and they even mentioned that maybe it's an elbow from maybe he came back too early in the offseason from this injury and threw too hard, and now there's some tendonitis going on there. But I have a feeling it's more of a shoulder pec thing, and this is kind of the reason. This play also is why you can't not having bad offense, or how do I supposed to say this? Not having good offensive linemen can't be because you didn't pay enough. I don't know if I said that right, but
Yeah, the cost of the offensive lineman should not deter you from getting good offensive linemen when this is the kind of
at
stuff
this
that's going
point,
on.
right? And so here we'll look at it. So here's it. So this is with Blake Fisher, who, as of right now, is very much in line to be one of the tackles this year because Trent Brown got hurt in week 3 last year with his patellar tendon. So there's not really any timetable for him to come back. That's a career ender, at least year long for most linemen out there, And so right now, here I'll quit talking to play it, but
they will go to the air on first down. Stroud feeling it. Stroud.
So right there, it looks pretty normal. Now look, boom,
Down. And I remember watching this because I was
Yeah.
very upset that he was
So
hurt.
look at the replay. Look at this replay. Here comes Blake Fisher. Boom. It just gets absolutely like
Bang.
you cannot have that as your left tackle, dude. Or as your right tackle.
Well, the
like,
crazy thing, it doesn't even look like if I were to guess the injury from that, it would probably have been a collarbone and not a pec or shoulder thing.
right.
Because a lot of times when a player's getting tackled on that shoulder right there, it breaks that collarbone. So at first, when I first saw this play, I thought he had broken his collarbone at least. But watching it back, it doesn't even look like it's that bad of a hit, which kind of tells you like
it might have just been the angle and
Sure.
where his arm was at. Like if you look at where he tried to brace himself with his arm, so that's why you have the collarbone injury a lot of the time. For in plays like in all reality, it's
I
a
want to
pretty
take a look
innocent
at
play.
something.
Huh.
Can you pause this? Rewind it a little bit right when he's rushing through. Look at how fast he gets by Blake Fisher right here.
One step, like it's just
Literally didn't even barely put a hand on him.
he hasn't touched him. He hasn't touched him. CJ's now on his first 1, 2. CJ's mid drop before he even touches him,
and
he's
Fisher's
already beat.
beat.
Because Fisher gets over his feet, leans on him, and
He way overextended. He way overshot that.
Right. All that Away has to do is chop, and now he's home free.
And he is home free at this point.
Right. Now look at this, guys. This is ridiculous. This man is salivating at the mouth at this point. He's like, wait. Am I in the NFL right now? Like, this is way too easy.
And then beautiful King, glorious King, CJ Stroud. Absolutely demolished. And then there's this guy, number 50, whoever this is. Why is he here?
Right, that's two people immediately in CJ's
if
face.
Owe would have missed that, if Owe would have missed that tackle, there's another
Van
guy
Noy
right
gets
there.
him. Van Noy gets him. Boom, like that right there. This right here is where it hurt him right here. That is where he gets
falling on that elbow, kind of just like,
yeah.
If you do it, if you flex a little bit, you can feel that pec kind of getting sore on you.
Yeah, I mean, let's see, do they? So here's a better angle. So I don't want to see you, Davis Mills. So first of all, he doesn't have 2 feet on the ground. Like so he's beat immediately. Like, look at this. Why? How is it that it was a 2-on-3 and 2 people got through? And so the point being is this is the this is the right tackle of the Texans' future. And he was a 2nd round pick, and now everybody's giving Ursary these. Everybody's like, oh, he's gonna be. I really hope I hope he steps in and plays the, and starts at one of the tackle spots. I think he's gonna be really good. Ursary was picked within the same 10 picks a year later as Blake Fisher. So how are we? We've seen what happens when you overpick or when you reach for an offensive tackle. Just because remember all of last offseason, if you remember, we got the exact same noise about about Fisher. Everybody's like, oh, Fisher's really good. Fisher's gonna be this. Fisher's gonna be that. He may be able to start at right tackle for us.
And the year before that, we got the same noise about Juice Scruggs too.
Yes. Juice Scruggs, and I remember everybody on Twitter when we drafted Juice Scruggs, it was kind of a head scratcher because he wasn't a 2nd or 3rd round. I think it was 3rd round, but he was not. He would have been available in the 5th or 6th, much like what the Texans did this year. Not with Ursary. I think Ursary would have been picked already, but just because somebody's available at that time and they're good to be picked there at that time doesn't necessarily mean that they should be picked there.
This image is very much pissing me off so bad because why is Fisher turned all the way 360 around after getting beat? Okay, what is I don't even know who these 2 people are in front of them, but what are they doing? And where did Van Noy come from?
Look at this. Look, 1, 2, 3. How are all of y'all turned around right now?
That's miserable.
Van Noy comes from a linebacker spot, I'm pretty sure. He comes from the middle of the field. Look, boom. He scrapes on Titus, or he scrapes on Patterson, boom. And then just runs right around Scruggs. And then runs right around Scruggs.
Yeah.
And then Fisher gets beat.
This is just
and we're supposed to.
And look at Dalton Schultz. Look at Dalton Schultz right here. If CJ Stroud has maybe half a second more,
literally, all you had to do was get in his way. That's it. All you had to do was get in that dude's way.
And Dalton Schultz is wide open.
Right. And okay, but so what? He gets maybe 2 or 3 yards because maybe somebody comes up and makes a tackle. But it's not CJ getting hurt, and you're not. Like, this is just, and I had totally forgotten. I had totally forgotten about the fact that Trent Brown wasn't going to play this year. I'd totally forgotten about that because in my mind I was like, okay, a Cam Robinson left tackle / Trent Brown left tackle. What the bookends being Cam Robinson and Trent Brown. I could live with that. Right. But now that Trent Brown, for sure isn't going to play at least till at the very minimum, if he's on the 1 year trajectory of that this injury has, he's still not going to be back till week 3. And I guarantee, and even if he is ready by week 3, he's
probably not going to be good.
You're right. You got to ramp him up. So there's he's probably going to start the year on IR. So you're going to have that 3-week period where he has to practice. So that's what. Now we're talking week 7, week 8, maybe.
At that point, what's even the point?
Right. At that point,
we're going to have our offensive line figured out.
Right. And so and there was yesterday I think the starting yesterday was Fisher at left tackle, or I think it was Cam Robinson at left tackle. Maybe not. Maybe I can't remember, but what I would like to see, is I mean, ultimately, I think you're going to have to play Fisher, and that's what's so scary. Because you're either going to play Fisher or you're going to play Ursary, and so you have an offensive line starting a rookie right or left tackle who already when the rest of the offensive line is already bad. It's not like It's not like you have a good rest of offensive line and you just install one rookie and you're like, okay, I need y'all to just come around this guy and make him better. You can't even ask them to do that because they're not even good.
And you're asking for everybody to be good.
Right.
Everybody's a question mark. Like there's literally not one bona fide piece on this offensive line.
You could argue Cam Robinson, but like that doesn't excite me, And a lot of the league's best left tackles start their career at guard. And I'm not even saying that Ursary is going to be bad. He may be good. That would be great. If Ursary can play, that's fantastic. But I would like to see him first play guard, one of the guard spots. Have Titus Howard play right tackle, and have Ursary play right guard. Jake Andrews play center. Laken Tomlinson left guard. Cam Robinson left tackle. I think that's
not big on the Laken Tomlinson thing. Like everybody's saying, Laken Tomlinson should be our starter. That's the guy from Seattle, right?
Yeah.
Go look at his playing time in Seattle. Go look at once we made that pickup. Literally every Seattle's fan was like, "Dude, he was their Kenyon Green."
Well, that was you're thinking about. I think are you talking about? So Ed Ingram, that's the name we haven't brought up. Ed Ingram was the one that we traded for, traded for or signed.
I don't think we traded. Oh no, this guy was from the. Yeah, he was from the Seahawks. He's 33. I don't know. Maybe he'll be good. I'm not seeing it. And Cole Popovich, everybody's talking about how he's the thing that pisses me off or confuses the fuck out of me is that it's the mindset. Nobody's saying that the guys actually look better than last year. They're just saying that their mindset is different.
Yeah, they're all they're saying is the mindset in the room is different. I don't really care about what's happening in the room. Okay, like
the mindset in the room, mind you, at the beginning of the year last year was great. This time last year, they had the Texans' offensive line ranked like terrible or something, and all of our offensive line was on Twitter talking about we're taking notes, keep that same energy, da 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 da. Hyped up going into the year, blew it week one. We're like, all right, we'll get better. Like we're not worried about it. We'll get better. Oh, we just got to play better. Oh, all right.
And then at the end,
now we suck.
Yeah, it was like, oh, we're trying our best. Okay.
Yeah. So mindset doesn't move me at all. Cole Popovich was in this room. I don't care what anybody says. He was in the room last year. He was able to. He wasn't just in the room like as like an advisor or like anything like. He was in the room as a coach. He wasn't the head offensive line coach, but he was in there. He had the ability to make an impact on the offensive line. The mindset. He could have done that last year. Like there's nothing that he's doing right now there's nothing he's doing right now that he couldn't have done last year.
Right. So and so for those people that because again in my conversation with Sideline Sarah on Twitter earlier or yesterday, she basically was like there was a lot of egos between Strasser, who was the previous O-line coach, and then Bobby Slowick. There was a lot of ego there, and they didn't want to. So, are you telling me that the whole 17 weeks they didn't want to? There was nothing that Pop could have done, nothing that Cole Popovich could have done. So, was he just a glorified cone setter? Like, did he just set cones?
My question to that is, okay, so Bobby Slowick and whoever, I don't even remember the other guy's name. What was it? They had big ego problems. Whose job is it to correct that ego problem? D'Amico Ryans, he's the head coach. He's all of their boss. So if you notice, hey, this offensive line looks like shit, and our offense can't do anything, and now you're noticing that these guys aren't letting other people help or try to do their job, or not, they're not taking input from the other coaches that you hired. That's your job as their boss to get in there and be like, hey, screw what you're talking about. We're going with his idea or something. That's the head coach's job.
Right.
There's so much management that goes on with the head coach that an ego should never be an issue with an assistant coordinator or anything like that.
Right. Right.
You never see
Because
with any great coach. Bill Belichick never had that issue. Sark, Nick Saban never had that issue.
right,
So
and
now
Nick
ego's a
Saban.
problem.
Right. So why is it that there was this uh, metaphor that was given to me. It was like, okay, if it was a retail and you have a bad manager, do you fire everybody else under them because the manager fucked up? And I'm like, well, I mean, because you kind of have to, if you're trying to get better, why would you keep the same people there that were around for the people that weren't better? Like, why? Who do you blame now? Like, what are they? Who do you blame if they're bad again? Because everybody's been telling us we're crazy for saying that Pop is going to be this is a mistake, and that he's got a different mindset, and all these people came out and said that he was great to work with, and now we have competition in the O-line room. I get it. I understand that last year we had no competition and the offensive line was bad, but having no competition doesn't mean your offensive line is going to be bad. Sometimes having no competition means your offensive line is good.
And just because we have competition doesn't mean the offensive line is going to be good, because these are a bunch of pretty much non-factors as far maybe some of them will be starters or at least backup. But we got guys on our offensive line right now that are mostly backups or like Shaq Mason's.
Luckily, we cut him. But why did he
Yes.
play in the?
We're getting guys that were in the same position Shaq Mason was in 2 years ago.
That's true. Because I remember, because I remember when we got Shaq Mason, it was like, oh, he was a really good guard in Tampa Bay, but everybody outside of Houston knew he was on the downfall. He wasn't going to be he wasn't going to be a Pro Bowl left guard. He wasn't going to be a top 10 left guard in the league. It just wasn't going to happen.
There's just so much optimism, and
I don't understand where it's
warranted.
coming from.
Yeah, you don't. This isn't one of those things that you like. I get Miko made the changes, and that's great. Love him for that. He's putting in the effort to show he's willing to do the hard stuff, which is fire his coordinator and fire the. Okay, fine, but that doesn't mean that we should be optimistic about what's going on, because we didn't get better on paper, and that's all we have to go off of now. And their mindset might have changed, but everybody goes into the season with a good mindset. Nobody goes, "Oh man, we suck this year. It's a wrap."
Right. Everybody wants to go into the next season good. It would be dumb for somebody. But are they supposed to come out and be like, "Oh yeah, our offensive line isn't very good now"? Like, what are they supposed to say? Like, of course you're going to say that your mindset's changed. Like, are you gonna come out and say, "Oh no, we're pretty much feeling and doing the same stuff we were doing last year"? No, of course you're not going to say that. So I can't trust you. I can't trust and believe the opposite when I know that you can't say the opposite. So you're just saying what you have. It's lip service at this point. Like you said, we haven't gotten better on paper, and that's all we have to go on for right now.
And you also, that's what I'm saying. They're so recent. Like the fan base is so recent, because last year D'Amico was getting up on the podium after every game that our offensive line looked like Swiss cheese, and we're gonna go look at the film and do what needs to be done to get better next week. And we never did. And now it's like, hey, we look different than we did last year. I bet we do look different because there's a whole group of different guys. That doesn't mean they're better than the guys last year.
Just because it's a different group doesn't mean it's a better group.
Yeah. I want to see them. I want to see when come OTAs what the media has to say about it. Stutes and all them who go to the actual practices.
Right.
Or not OTAs, training camp.
Training camp, yeah. Yeah. And my whole point is I try really hard not to, because I love D'Amico Ryans. I think he was born and bred to coach this football team. I believe that. But if there was such an ego in the offensive room, as the head coach, I don't care if your main thing is defense. I don't care. You're the head coach. You're the head guy. So if you know, your quarterback is getting pummeled. Your offensive line isn't getting better. You're losing games because you can't block and you can't run the ball. So why weren't you week 6 walking in there like, what the fuck are we doing? And then why weren't you getting up Strasser's ass being like, I don't care about an ego. If this guy Cole Popovich has good ideas, if he has something to say, you're going to listen to him because we're trying to win us a fucking Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Okay,
sure.
we have one of the greatest, not greatest, but we have a really solid quarterback at the time. was his second year. So our defense is top, our quarterback is top, our receivers
Receiving core was top.
top. So like why are we wasting our time with you on the offensive line? It is your job to block people. Why is it harder for you than everybody else? I don't understand. Why were you not in that offensive line room up their ass? That would be my question to D'Amico Ryans. What were you doing? Were you just like, hands off, I'm gonna let them handle it? Then that's your fucking fault that they were bad. That it's your fault. Then you should be the one to blame.
Because if it was a situation like that where he was hands off and I trust you guys, and if y'all don't, I'm assuming there's a couple of ways it could have went. He could have talked to them last year and been like, "Look, I'm gonna let y'all do y'all's thing, but just know your job's on the line if this shit doesn't work out." That would be my guess as to what happened, because he didn't seem very into, like, D'Amico Ryans is so weird, especially coming from where he came from, his coaching tree. Like, he almost should, like, he's such a player's guy, but he almost shows no emotion. Like, when we're getting Swiss cheesed out there on the offensive line, he's just like, punt team, just get out there, punt team. Like, he's not, I don't see him chewing anybody's ass, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but it's just like confusing. You would feel like he'd be able to resonate with these guys more. And especially being so defensive minded, you've got to work around good offensive lines to be a good defense. So you have to have some input on how to have a productive offensive line.
Right. And like I said earlier, it's if you know that this offensive line is bad, why are you not, as the head coach, going and doing something about it?
Or at least trying to initiate some trade. Like we didn't do anything at the trade deadline last year.
Right, and that's and like to your point about if this doesn't work out, your job's on the line. Okay, it didn't work out. You fire him. Why didn't you go out and spend the money that you knew we had? Why did you spend the money on 42 linebackers? You only played 2 at a time, and half the time you're playing in nickel anyway. So because you're not taking Jalen Petrie off the field. So you're gonna so half the time you're playing with Azeez Al-Shire, and when Christian Harris goes back, maybe
Henry Toto.
Yeah, last year it was Henry Toto and Azeez Al-Shire. That was it. You weren't playing 3 or 4 linebackers. So why did you go and sign 4 of them this offseason or whatever it was?
Well, I get why, at least having the depth,
sure,
bolstering up the defense. I understand that Miko's going to be a defense first guy. That's like, I've come to the point where I don't even question, we signed another corner, or we signed another linebacker, or we signed another defensive tackle or safety, or whoever we get. I don't even question that. The thing that I have an issue with is, why are we getting big name guys on defense when we know we don't need big name guys on defense?
Right.
Like, realistically, I love having him on the team. I'm sure he'll do great, but we didn't need C.J. Gardner-Johnson. We needed offensive linemen.
Right. You could the money that you're going to pay C.J. Gardner-Johnson this year, you could have used to go sign a decent offensive line. I'm not even if you could have just brought one. Can we just get one?
Well, and Will Fries and the other guy, I forget his name. Those two were only going for like $13 million a year.
Right, exactly. So it's
which is way lower than everybody thought they were going to go for, anyways.
Right. So why not? But instead, you're going to go give $10 million to Two-Hill dude, however much you paid him, and it was like he's not even going to play next year because because if Christian Harris comes back, it's going to be Henry Toto, Christian Harris, and Azeez Al-Shire. That's it. Those are going to be your linebackers next year. Now you could say, we need special teams, yada yada. Okay, fine. But you could have gotten anybody else for less money and put them on special teams and been just fine. You didn't need to spend that money on him.
Yeah, because our special teams coach is a badass. He knows how to get these guys going.
Right. Our special teams wasn't the fucking problem.
Yeah, at all.
Like, why are we wasting money on a non-hit? If it ain't broke, don't fix it. If it's broke, you should probably fix it. And the offensive line was broken.
That defense last year was good enough to win us a Super Bowl. Mind you, by the way, I'm just going to put that out there. I know that sounds crazy because they looked weird at times and looked bad at times, but that's only because, dude, they were out on the field so much more than the offense was. If you go back and watch 2 or 3 Texans games, you'll notice probably 58% of the time our defense is on the field. And when they're not on the field, we're getting 3 and outed, or we're not able to sustain a long enough drive to get them the energy back to come back. Like, so they come back out there and they get beat over the top because they're tired because they just did this shit 3 minutes ago.
Right. because it was such. I mean, and we could talk about it. You could, like I said, we could blame it on Bobby Slowick. That's fine, but ultimately, they were either really fat, like the Colts, or when they go one play, boom, touchdown, or you you get a 6-play drive, boom, you're done. You punt the ball away. Then you're going against a Ravens team that go 12 plays. You come back out there on offense, you go 6 plays, you're done. Ravens go score another touchdown in 13 plays. Kansas City goes on another 11, 12, 13 play drive. Meanwhile, we're punting the ball on a 3 and out. Like there was just so many ups and downs. Like how are we supposed to feel good when on paper we are still, because we don't have it. Now I was a big proponent with trading Laremy Tunsil. I thought his time here was done. But not.
I thought we were going to get something different. Like I was also down for trading Tunsil, but I thought the package was going to be so different than what it was.
Right.
I thought we would have traded a player for a player and picks.
Right. And the thing is like,
I'll be right back. Hold on.
Okay. And the Texans, if they would have, they could have brought in, because they brought in Cam Robinson. Breaking news: Texas just beats Texas Tech 2-1 in Game 1 of the Women's College World Series softball. What a game there, ladies. 4 errors though. 4 errors. Not very good defensively. One of the big things coming into this game was how the defense was going to play behind the pitching staff, and it wasn't a great start. But ultimately, they get the best of Najee Kennedy, the Texas Tech pitcher, probably the best in all of softball, and Texas pulls out a 2-1 win to go up 1-0 with a chance to win it next game. So, good win to the ladies. Good job. Go win the damn thing. Now, back to the Texans. They bring it. Like I said, I'm okay with the Cam Robinson addition, and I think adding a Cam Robinson and getting rid of a Tunsil, maybe you lose a little bit of the star power, a little bit of the guarantee on the box, but he has been solid in his career so far, and I think he can at least hold up on that left side. But but the other 4 positions, I don't know, man. It's all question marks everywhere, and that's going to be a big problem. And we're gonna have a lot of questions. And there's also possibility. So earlier this week, the Lions center, I'm drawing a blank on his name, he retires. Ragnow, I think was his name. He retires. And there was a lot of scuttlebutt about the Texans possibly trading a Scruggs or a Patterson to try to get some picks back. If you can get some picks for those dudes, do it every day and twice on Sunday. Because
the problem is our offensive line holds no value to anybody else in the league besides us.
That's what's so good. They're trying that perfectly said. Our offensive line holds no value to anybody else but us. That in and of itself should tell you how bad they are. Like if nobody else in the league would take any of our offensive linemen outside of maybe 1 or 2 of them, that's a problem. That's a problem. And we'll have to. And I hope to God that they find a way to hold CJ up, because I have a buy or sell later that pertains to that. So we'll see kind of what happens there. But I'm not very happy with how things are going right now, if I'm being honest.
All right. That's all you got for that?
That's all I got. I think we kind of got up against. I think we kind of 34 minutes on that. I think we did good.
Okay. Yeah. I want to get into some college football stuff.
Yeah, let's transition to some college ball, baby.
So Ryan Williams, the other day, is on John Gruden's show with Isaiah Horton, and John Gruden's a character. They get to talking about all kinds of stuff. It's actually pretty interesting. Regardless of being an Alabama fan or not, y'all should go watch it. Pretty interesting stuff. But a question comes up where Mr. Gruden, Coach Gruden, asks Ryan Williams kind of what happens in the Vanderbilt game last year and what happened. And Ryan Williams, I personally, Now, a lot of Alabama media members or whatever the case may be, people who keep up with them, um, they weren't pleased with his answer. I didn't think it was bad. Gruden goes, "What happened against Vandy last year?" Because they were the better team. They game planned better. They just did what they were supposed to. But next year we're gonna kill an ant with a sledgehammer. And all those teams that beat us, we just kind of see red. We got red eyes going into those games. I think that's a reasonable answer.
Yeah.
You're not gonna be like, "Oh yeah, we fucking suck." We fucking suck, and those guys beat us, and we're not gonna beat them next year. You put them in a weird spot for that question. So he goes, "All right, we're going to kill an ant with a sledgehammer," which personally I think is a little more tame of an answer than I would have given.
Sure.
I would have been like, "Joyless murder ball. We're shitting on them. I hate them." I'd have started cussing everybody out. Well, Diego Pavia, Vanderbilt's quarterback, gets wind of this, gets on his Instagram, I think, and posts a story. Let me read this out. Read this out to you. Diego Pavia. Oh, it's deleted. Anyways, it's a Gucci Mane song or something like that, talking about how we don't want confrontation and them boys not man enough to say congratulations. Pretty much calling out Ryan Williams. And hey, man, let's not do that. That's not a can of worms that you want to open.
Right. Congratulations. You beat Alabama one time. Let's not act like y'all are the next, let's not act like y'all are now all of a sudden the top in the SEC. You had to beg the NCAA to even let you play again next year.
So you're like 80 years old.
Right.
Talking
You weren't
shit
good
to
enough to go.
Mind you, he was 17 years old last year, and you're beefing with him.
Right. You weren't good enough to go to the league, so you had to beg the NCAA to have you come back.
And honestly, I think I saw somebody from Covered Crimson, I think is what I was watching. And they made a couple interesting points. They said, you beat Alabama last year, you and Pavia. You kept it close with Texas. You had a lot of good games that a lot of people weren't expecting you to be in.
Right.
You kept it competitive. By any means, it was not. It was definitely the best Vanderbilt team we've seen probably in 20 years.
20 years.
Yeah,
probably at least.
At least. And congratulations. Good for good season. You're not catching anybody off guard anymore, though.
Yeah. Now you've opened your mouth, and now people are they're gonna want to They're gonna want to put a sledgehammer to an ant.
Like you're not going up. You're not going to go like any game that you play next year against a not even just Alabama, but a competitive team. They're not looking at the Vanderbilt game on the schedule and saying, "All right, let's move on to the next one. Who do we got after that?" They're like, "Okay, let's figure this out first." They're going to spend a little bit more time game planning for that Vanderbilt game because of what y'all got going on. And now I'm not saying y'all are a bad team. I was pretty high on Vanderbilt last year. Actually, before y'all beat us, I was big on Vanderbilt.
Yeah,
but you don't get to, especially in the SEC, you don't get to go win big games like that and just, you don't want to do that.
Right. Now you got to prove it. Now you opened your mouth. Now you got to go prove it again. If they do it again, I don't think they will, but if they do, then you got to give them credit. Because every college football fan out there knows 9 times out of 10, 9.5 times out of 10, Alabama's dog walking Vanderbilt. It's not even a game. And
well, here's the thing that got me, and I kind of thought back on the season a little bit. At this point, Alabama is 3-0, 4-0 going into they just beat Georgia, just took the number one.
Mm-hmm.
We were the number one team going into that Vanderbilt game. Just beating Georgia, super hyped up. Everybody was on. And this is a thing Nick Saban talked about a lot was it was a weird mindset that he had. He didn't hate winning, but he didn't like it when players, knew that they were good. Because then you get an ego. That's what he called rat poison. He would consider what Ryan Williams did rat poison. Everybody was hyping him up. He doesn't like the media stuff because it inflates the ego so much that you look at those Vanderbilt games. After you beat Georgia, what are we worrying about Vanderbilt for? Because we knew roster for roster we're better than them.
Right.
Even if we got into a sticky situation, our playmakers are better than their playmakers. We should be able to win this game somehow. And we didn't. But I think that'll change next year.
Yeah, I think there's not really a doubt about that. I mean, honestly, like you said, the discussion about people gave like I was a big Pavia guy. I think he was fun to watch. You know, he's very Johnny Manziel light. You know, he's the Kroger brand Johnny Manziel. You know, so like it was a fun to watch, but he better be careful what you ask for, okay? Because
And
you got to
pick
go
your
into
battles,
Tuscaloosa.
because you're going
Right.
into Tuscaloosa after beating them.
Exactly.
That's not a good place to be in.
And as a Texas fan, I know that is a difficult place to play. You know, so like this isn't gonna be some walking because, and we'll get into the hot seat stuff later, and this probably will come up again, because this is you got a lot of is Kalen DeBoer going to be able to, put his foot on the metal or put his foot on the gas? You know, we'll find out.
Well, that's the thing is, here's the Vanderbilt game was shocking to everybody because they won the game, but it wasn't like they blew Alabama out. It was a close game going in. Like, had Milroe, now I'm not putting the whole loss on Milroe, but there was a pick six in there somewhere.
Milroe he lost his mind.
Yeah,
not in a good
but
way.
had he not thrown the pick six in that game, we win by a touchdown. Now it's not a margin of victory, but we don't lose.
Right.
So let's not act like, you did catch us by surprise. You caught Alabama by surprise. Right. Nobody was expecting y'all to do that.
Right.
And y'all had momentum. Y'all were at home. Your crowd got into it. Milroe, whenever he gets in that mode of like, when he starts screwing up and there's a lot of uncertainty with him. Yes, he does a lot of hero ball and was just trying to do too much. And y'all ended up winning the game. Congratulations. But don't talk like you're a top team. Because now you don't put yourself on the map, not just for Alabama, but for everybody else on your roster.
Right.
This same team that lost to like Georgia, I forget who they lost to. It was some like damn near FCS team. Yeah, some damn near FCS team that they lost to. So y'all's floor is still really low.
Right. Worry about beating the teams you're supposed to beat rather than getting lucky and beating the teams you're not supposed to beat.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And Ethan has a dog in that fight. Because they kept it close against his Texas team.
Yeah, they did. Because he also went nuts against Texas and made it really close. And then Texas did the most Texas thing possible, gave him a free first down instead of gave him a free first down rather than a fumble recovery going into their end zone, and they go down and score. And now it's what it was ended up being a closer game than it was supposed to be.
For sure.
So yeah, I'm Vanderbilt. I'm ready to get them over with because
send them back to their place.
Yeah,
send them pome.
Put them in their place. Put
them back.
The more I think about it, right? The more I think about it, the way Ryan Williams put it, taking a sledgehammer to an ant. I think that's probably what's gonna happen. He should have went to the league last year because he ain't gonna have the same season this year. It's not gonna happen. It's not.
There's too much film on him. Everybody knows about him now.
There's too much.
And even last year he was real. He was a pretty much quiet guy up until he beat Bama, and then he was on podcasts. He was, I'm sure he made a ton of NIL money off of beating Alabama, which is good for you. But started getting on podcasts, got a little, he started talking his ish, which do your thing. You beat Alabama, whatever, do your thing. But don't, and he took it as a disrespect thing, which I think bothered me more than anything. It's like Ryan Williams wasn't disrespecting Vanderbilt. But just as much as everybody else knows, like, he's not going to be like, oh, yeah, we're going to lose to them again.
Right. What is he supposed to say? Like, there was nothing disrespectful about it.
Yeah. And I think the ant to a sledgehammer to an ant thing is the thing that got him riled up. But, like, how would you word that? That's what y'all have historically been to Alabama, is just nothing but an ant. Like, we'll see. I predict the game. I'd be surprised if Vanderbilt scores.
42-14, and the 14 comes because y'all took y'all starters out or something.
Yeah. I don't even think we take our starters out.
I mean,
I'm telling you, because Kane Womack, listen, last year, Kane Womack's not above taking his starters out, or not above not taking his starters out, because we had a shutout going on against Mizzou last year. He put the starters back in to secure the shutout. So he's not – so – and this was a top 10 defense, returning 60%, I think, productivity from last year.
Right.
I don't know. Diego, you might have dug yourself a hole there.
Right. It was a top 10 defense that lost the number one safety in the country to Ohio
Yeah.
State. They were still a top 10 defense. So like, congratulations, you caught him with a good right hook. We'll find out if you could come back again next year with the left hook. We'll find out.
I want to get into one more thing about Alabama.
Yeah, go ahead.
AJ McCarron also started. You know AJ McCarron, I'm sure.
Yeah.
He got on a podcast, or he started his own podcast, and this is another interesting thing in the sports world. AJ McCarron got on a podcast and compared this year's team, the 2025 Alabama team, to the 2011 national championship team, arguably one of the better football teams of all time in college football. This is the year AJ McCarron. He just drew a lot of similarities in the fact that Ty Simpson was in the same position that AJ McCarron was in when he came in, coming off the back of a good quarterback, unproven, gets in with the roster full of talent. And they went and won a national championship that year. So McCarron came in there with a hot take, which I didn't necessarily agree with, but I did see the points he made were pretty interesting.
Right. I think this is a good way to, transition here. So we're gonna get into the possible SEC coaches on the hot seat this year, and I think there's probably about 4 or 5 of them that there's a real discussion to be had for a number of reasons. The first one that I want to kind of talk about is, admittedly, we're going to talk about Kalen DeBoer right here. Now, I know, earlier I didn't mention him as one of the top coaches, but he has to be better than last year, right? And I think Alabama has the roster, they got the talent, they've got the willpower to do it. But they don't have Nick Saban on that sideline anymore. There's no guarantees anymore. We learned that last year because if there were guarantees, you would have beat OU, you would have beat Vanderbilt, you would have beat Tennessee. You would have been in the playoffs. Maybe you lose one game maybe you lose to Georgia because whatever, just to keep it fair, right? But you definitely beat those other 3 teams for sure.
Correct.
There's no guarantees now.
I will agree to disagree to agree with you, if that makes sense. Now, I do think Kalen DeBoer is still one of the top head coaches in all of college football, at least top 10. I do think that he's still a really good coach, and I don't think he's necessarily on the hot seat yet. Not going into the season.
Yes. No, yeah.
But I will say
that's
this.
True, yes.
Based on the circumstances of next season, could he find himself on the hot seat? I don't think, even if he has the same year as last year, I still don't think he gets fired. But I definitely think if he cannot – here's the thing with Ken DeBoer. Alabama fans are very overreactive. I mean, we lost to Vanderbilt, and they started talking about what clothes the guy was wearing on the sideline. They were mad that he was wearing a certain kind of clothing on the sideline. And, we're calling for his job over it. Yeah. You need to look more professional. Then they got mad because he wasn't jumping in players' ass. Then they got mad because he wasn't jumping in the ref's ass. They were just finding everything to get mad at the guy about.
Right.
And as Kalen DeBoer, you have to know what kind of fan base you're getting into.
Well, you're following the greatest of all time. You got to recognize that the bar that he set for you is unattainable. The only
not just the bar, but just the way he did things is not the same way Kalen DeBoer does things.
They're not the same guy. Kalen DeBoer is more of a cool dude. He's a cool customer. Saban was 75 years old, ready to go throw hands with every referee that crossed his face.
And just the way they went about certain things was different. And that's Kalen DeBoer started to adopt some of it. I don't think it was a personal choice of his, honestly. I think he kind of got forced into it. He did the whole, wear better clothes when you come to no more being late to meetings, which, mind you, if you were already late to meetings and this is now a new rule that you're implementing, you've already had a problem. No more chains. And then talking about how this is going to be the hardest summer that they've ever had in Alabama. And, he's changing a lot of things, which is cool. I don't care about that, though. I want to know what you're going to do next season, because missing the playoffs not
when it's 12 teams.
Kalen DeBoer is on the hot seat if he doesn't make the playoffs, regardless of how good the season goes.
Right.
If making the playoffs is the minimum that you have to do next year as Kalen DeBoer and the University of Alabama.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, especially when it's a 12-team playoff, you have no excuse. You have no excuse. And like you said, I'm not saying he's on the hot seat right now. I'm not even saying he's going to be on the hot seat at the end of the year. But the seat is not frozen. It's not frozen right now.
Hey, you're not the guy. You're not the bona fide Nick Saban guy.
Yeah, it's not a frozen seat.
You're not the Kirby Smart.
Right, the seat warmers, you just touch the seat warmer button and it's on the first dot.
Yeah.
That's what it is right now. You
know,
so,
I would argue it's a summertime. The car was parked. It's summertime, and he gets in, and the car's hot, and he's turning on the AC. That's what kind of hot it is.
Yeah,
it has the potential to cool down, but then the AC might go out, and then you turn the seat heater on.
Right, right. If you, it's like one of those cars. If you go over 80, the AC turns off.
Yeah,
it could be like that. You don't know what kind of car you're getting into right now. You know,
I would say the most not number one, but one of my high candidates for somebody being on the hot seat is Brian Kelly from LSU.
That's another one I was going to talk about.
I think he's on I think his seat is kind of fall, cool, 60 degrees outside, and he's got about 2 buttons up. He's like, ooh, yeah, maybe we can knock this down to 1.
Right, because I would argue that he's riding the coattails of Nussmeier right now. Because if Nussmeier was at below average quarterback last year and they go and win 7 or 8 games, or how many games did LSU even win last year?
I think it was like 7 or 8.
Let's see. I can't remember exactly.
LSU went. Oh shit.
See, they won
5-3
in the SEC.
Yes, in conference. Overall 9-4. My bad. So same as Alabama.
Right. And same, but that's crazy. So same as Alabama, but LSU is getting a whole lot more offseason hype.
Yes.
Why?
Because of the quarterback. Because the thing is, Alabama shouldn't have been 9-4. That's why Alabama should have been probably 11-1 or 10-2.
Yeah.
That's why. I think the question mark, like, people, I get it's a team game, but people underestimate. Maybe they don't, but it's a team game. But the most important part of that team is the quarterback. It drives your entire offense. If you have a bad quarterback, you're not going to score points. Unless you're one of Nick Saban's, early 2010 football teams where you don't even need a damn quarterback. You just need somebody to hand the ball off to somebody else that's really good at what they do. Right. And they don't have that. And Nussmeier is a good quarterback. I think he's a little overrated, but I do think he's good. However, if he goes down with an injury, doesn't play up to par, if y'all maybe they had some close games that they won, that if they lose, I don't think Brian Kelly's the head coach at LSU this year.
Right. So if they lose to South Carolina, last year, now so you had the chunk of Alabama, LSU, and Ole Miss all went 9-4 and 5-3 in the SEC. If LSU loses to they could have lost to South Carolina and Texas A&M.
They did lose to Texas.
They did lose. I'm saying, but I'm saying they could have lost to both of those teams. And you're talking about it. Is Brian Kelly on the hot seat at 8-4? He's probably not there at 8. And
I think Brian Kelly's on the hot seat right now. And if they don't, at least I think they're in the same. I think their fan base is in the same mindset of you got to make a playoff this year, like this year, or you're done.
Right. Because there's at the end of the day, I mean, they were a middle of the pack SEC team, and there's no reason that Brian Kelly shouldn't be on the hot seat at this point because he hasn't done anything since he's been there in reality.
Correct.
So how long are LSU fans going to sit and wait? Because LSU is a bona fide program. I wouldn't say they're necessarily a blue blood, but they're a bona fide blood. Like, you know what I mean?
So I think I would consider them a blue blood.
Maybe.
Maybe.
Okay, that's even worse then. As a blue blood, you can't go out there and squeak out 9-4 every year. Like, I want to know. Like, let's see. So last year they were 9-4.
Mm-hmm.
Now the year before that they were 10-3.
Mm-hmm.
And then so they were 10-3 and 10-4 in the 2 years before that, and now they're at 9 and then last year they end at 9-4.
I think if they go 9-4 or worse this year, I think Brian Kelly's out of there. Gonzo, Dunzo, bye. Simple as that.
Yeah, I agree. So here's another one that maybe some people wouldn't agree with. But what about Missouri's Eli Drinkowitz?
I feel like they're
You see, that's right. Because
I don't think anybody anticipates Missouri being a good, like, outside of Mizzou fans and like their whole shit that they got going on over there. I don't think anybody really expects them to be good. So like, I wouldn't say he's on the hot seat, even if they were ranked last year, I think in the top 10 for a good portion of the season, I want to say, or top 15 or something. Like, they were pretty high ranked for no reason. I mean, they sucked so bad. They were so terrible. And maybe they'll be in the top 25. If they can stay ranked, I don't think he's on the hot seat. But if they go unranked or something like that and just play, yeah, I get. I mean, but Mizzou's not really like a team where you're
because
like.
they don't have a Luther Burden anymore.
Correct.
So, like, you're talking about a completely different team. And let's see, I want to know. So, like, okay, so you bring in Kevin Coleman as one of your receivers. That's cool. Okay, but outside of that, you don't have a quarterback this year like you had last year. So it's gonna be an
they had like what's his name, Brady Cook or something like that. Who was their quarterback last year? I'm pretty sure it was something like Brady or something like that.
Let's see, Mizzou 2024.
Yeah, Brady Cook.
Yeah, Brady Cook. So you don't have a Brady Cook. Now, granted, Brady Cook went undrafted, so he wasn't like necessarily the greatest quarterback ever. But he was a 3-year starter. Okay, he signs with the Jets afterwards, and now you're going in with either Drew Pine, Sam Horn, or Bo Pribula. And for all I've heard, Bo Pribula is kind of the guy that's leading the charge there. So, if you had like I said yesterday, or I might have been a couple podcasts ago, if you have 3 quarterbacks, you have no quarterbacks, and that's why if you have a solid quarterback, you can win games, kind of regardless of what the team around you looks like. Because having a good quarterback at the college level is kind of hard because there's so many teams and so many players that like only so many teams can have very good quarterbacks.
Mm-hmm.
So ultimately, if for whatever reason they don't have a good quarterback play, then you're talking about a 6-win team at that point. Now I'm not saying that he's necessarily on the hot seat either, but there might be a little bit of huffing and puffing in Missouri by the end of the year.
Sure, for sure. But I think the expectations for Missouri aren't high. So it's hard to be on a hot seat
right.
if you have low expectations.
Right. Okay. I'm going to give you another name. What about you're going to like this. What about a Hugh Freeze?
No, I don't think he's on the hot seat.
No? Okay, fair enough. I mean, I just think because Auburn hasn't really been
I think his team sucks, but they recruited well enough and
that's true.
Got enough transfer portals for like
he gave
him
himself
to be
a little bit of life. He gave himself some life.
He's bought himself like 2 years, like because they could suck this year, and he's like, oh, my guys aren't developed yet.
Right.
Okay, we'll see next year.
Right. Now personally, this next one, Brent Venables. His seat is not only is it hot, but it's melting. It's so hot because they were so unprepared to be in the SEC last year. Just so unprepared because they tried to force Jackson.
Is this an unbiased take or is this a?
No, I mean maybe it's a little bit biased, but it's not wrong. They were unprepared to be in this league. if you look at Texas and OU, you could compare them because it was both their first years in the SEC. Now, the OU's schedule last year, admittedly, was very, very difficult. Let's see. Tennessee, Texas, South Carolina, Ole Miss, Missouri, Alabama, all of those teams were ranked in the top 20, in the top 25 last year, top 20. So like, yeah, it was a tough schedule to play, but that's why you came into that league, though.
Yeah, that's what you asked for. That's
what you asked for. So if you knew 2 years, 3 years in advance you were going to that league, much like Texas did. Now, again, admittedly, Texas had a much easier schedule, so that played in their advantage. I'll give them that. But they still went out and won 13 games last year. So, like, you could say, yes, it was but you still got to win the games. I mean,
so what would it take for him to get fired is the question. Because they're hyped up. I mean, everybody's on the OU train.
Yeah. I don't know. They can't go 6-6 again. I'll tell you that.
Okay.
They can't go 6-6 again. So, I mean, he's got to win at least 8 or 9 games to give him some life. Because
I think we get another shot at OU this year, I believe.
I'll be watching that. Yeah, y'all do.
We do? Yeah. That's another game. Hey, we're pissed off about that. I think we're more. I don't know, man. There's a lot of games that everybody's pissed off. I would say,
dude, their schedule is tough, dude. They go Texas, South Carolina, Ole Miss, Tennessee, Bama, Missouri, and LSU to finish the season.
That's not as bad as I thought it was going to be.
I mean, now Missouri isn't. We've discussed probably aren't going to be that good next year. So maybe, but I would say trap game there. They got to play Bama. Bama's going to put BTA to that. I'm pretty sure. Tennessee. Nobody's really sold on Tennessee yet because they lost their quarterback, and we don't really know how Joey Aguilar is going to be, or it's going to be Merklinger. We don't really know that yet. Ole Miss, they're also starting another quarterback in Austin Simmons. Everybody's kind of giving him a lot of hype too. Now, I think Kiffin's offense is very easy to use, easy to play, very easy to play in.
Quarterback friendly.
There you go. Quarterback friendly. So I wouldn't be surprised if Ole Miss does have a very good offense and can win a lot of games next year. That wouldn't be the biggest. South Carolina, Lenora Sellers, Nick Harbor, that team, the team that arguably could have been in the playoffs last year. Then you go again. Then you got Texas the week before that. We can get into that too, but obviously Texas is going to be very good next year.
And Texas got to put BTA to that.
And Texas got to put BTA to that because they go.
And then you got LSU.
Right. Then you got LSU, who might be okay because of their quarterback play. So yeah, there's kind of there's definitely higher and low and middle tier games, but
that is a tough stretch.
That's a tough stretch to have because you're either going into a game that you should win, but you're so fucking beat from the game you just played that you could fall in it, or you're that good and you're gonna take care of business. But I don't see that happening for an Oklahoma team next year. I just don't. I don't believe in John Mateer. He wasn't that good at Washington State. He wasn't this great quarterback at Washington State. Like, I don't know where this John Mateer hype comes from. I know he's got a lot of athleticism. He's got a big arm, but he doesn't do anything great. Like, he doesn't do anything better than Jackson Arnold, in my opinion. And they benched Jackson Arnold for a freshman quarterback in the middle of a Texas game.
Talk your talk, man. Talk your talk.
So, like, this is not an OU team that
It's destined to be good. Yeah,
right.
they're not.
They lose
yes.
David Stone. They lose David Stone, a 5-star defensive tackle. And their head coach is supposed to be a defensive guy, so they're supposed to have a good defense. Much like Texas' head coach is an offensive guy. They're supposed to. Georgia's head coach is a defensive guy. They've always had a good defense. You can count on Georgia having a good defense. You have no idea what you're going to get with this Oklahoma team, and that's why they could finish 6-6 again, because it could be one game their defense shows up and they shut somebody down. The next game they play a my brain just went stupid. Next game they play a Nussmeier, and then he throws for 350 yards and 4 touchdowns. Then you go and play an Austin Simmons, a guy you have no film on, right? So you have no idea really what you're getting, outside of one drive against what was it, Georgia, that he played in last year,
which he looked good in.
Which he looked good in, but outside of one drive, you don't have a whole lot of tape on him. So it's going to be a guessing game there, and it's not like he's had Oklahoma's head coach has had consecutively good defenses where you can count on him at least having answers. You don't know that, which is why they went 6-6 and why I think they probably will go 6-6 again, because I don't think they got better this offseason. I just don't see it.
Or worse, they could go worse than 6-6.
They could have gotten worse. They could have gotten worse, and they could go worse than 6-6. I could totally see that.
I will say this. I will disagree with one point you had. I think OU will have a good defense. I think they had a good defense last year. They just couldn't score any points. Much like the Texans. Like, they had a good defense, but they were just out there all the time. And so they just couldn't. Their offense couldn't ever do anything. So they just had to play defense all game pretty much, which is never a good recipe for success. So if they can figure that out, maybe they win. I will give them. I will play devil's advocate here and say maybe they could probably play it better than their record if their offense can get going. Bringing some good guys, I guess, but not really. So if they can just figure it out offensively even a little bit and give that defense a little bit of a break, I think we'll see a lot better Oklahoma team.
Well,
but
go ahead. Sorry.
In the same sentence, you can also say there's nothing that is a needle mover on the offensive side of the ball that's like, oh, they're definitely going to have some answers on offense this year.
Right. They brought in a transfer wide receiver from Arkansas Pine Bluff, I think, who was getting a lot of hype during spring ball, who was supposed to be their number one guy next year, and he gets hurt, tears his ACL or something. So it's there's just not a lot of options there right now.
Mm-hmm.
I think before I say something stupid, let me just make sure. I want to see if this is who I think it is. So they bring in okay. So I was right. Now they do bring in Cal running back transfer Jaden Ott, who was one of the top transfer running backs.
Oh, Jaden Ott's pretty good. Yeah.
That was one of the top transfer running backs this offseason. So maybe there's a little life there with John Mateer and Jaden Ott in your backfield. Maybe, because I think that's a better combo than they had last year. I would argue.
I could agree with that.
Maybe there's a little life there. So maybe, but I just don't know. And I think, if their defense goes out and has another, because ultimately, just because they have a good defense, but it doesn't matter if you're a defensive guy and your defense is good. You're the head coach, and your team is bad, and you're losing. That's why he's on the hot seat, in my opinion. Bang. Hello.
Mic drop.
I think honestly, that's pretty much. We could have a discussion about Mark Stoops, but that's kind of the same. I think he's kind of in the same lane as Eli Drinkowitz, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Low expectations, hard to be on the hot seat.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. So,
okay.
I mean, yeah, that's kind of all I had for the coaches and stuff like that. Did you have anything else that you wanted to add?
That's all I got.
Yeah.
Yep.
Cool. I'm gonna hit you with what was it? I had a buy or sell. Let me remember what it was. I should have wrote it.
Something about Texans offensive line or something like that.
Oh, buy or sell. CJ Stroud misses more than 3 games next year.
To start or in general?
In general, but because of his shoulder.
I will sell 3. I'll sell 3. I'll buy 1.5 or 2.
So originally I was going to say 2, but I wanted to make it difficult. I feel like 3 was the right. I feel like 3 would have made it different. 3 made it.
I'll sell on 3, but I think he might miss a game or 2.
Right. I wouldn't even be surprised if he misses 1 to start the season, to be honest with you. If the way things are looking right now, the fact that he's still not throwing, the fact that there's still this shroud of secrecy, there's a shroud around Stroud of secrecy.
There you go.
So, it's a problem. And people are saying if he had surgery, we would have known. They
like to keep us in the fucking dark about every goddamn thing that goes around. Everything that goes on in that building.
Right. They don't want anybody to know anything.
They wouldn't even tell us what they had for dinner today.
Right. What, D'Amico, what did you have for dinner last night? Oh, you know, I think that's I'm gonna keep that at home. What do you mean by that?
We're gonna keep that one in house. We'll monitor it. We'll monitor it. Maybe we'll get back to you.
Yeah, we'll monitor my dinner and we'll get back to you. I'm sorry, huh?
Yeah. What does that even mean? All right, let me get you with one. Buy or sell. Let me see. Buy or sell. I got two for you. Buy or sell. Ole Miss makes the playoffs next year.
Sorry, computer about to die. I don't know. Well, hold on. Let me think. Because I think ultimately Texas. I'm trying to think in terms of SEC teams because I think once they reach a certain amount of SEC teams, then that same reason that they didn't make it last year. So I'm gonna sell that. Because I think Alabama, Florida, Georgia, Texas, and LSU all can make the playoffs next year. And if those 5 teams make it, there's just not enough room for an Ole Miss. And I don't think they could win enough games to make it to where it's an auto win. You know what I mean?
Okay, let me ask you this. Assuming Julian Sand has a good year, buy or sell Ohio State going back-to-back natties? Not a great year. Just good.
Just good.
Like 2,800 yards or something like that.
Right. Or he could really have the same year as like if he had the same year as Will Howard.
No, worse than Will Howard.
Worse than Will Howard. Okay. I'm gonna sell that. I think there's a lot more parity in college football. I don't think we'll ever. I don't know if we'll see many more back-to-backs or back-to-back-to-backs like we've seen.
I got one last one for you. Now this is a buy for me personally.
Okay.
Buy or sell. Tulane ends the year in the top 25.
Yeah, I'll buy that.
Go Waves.
I'll buy
Roll
that.
Wave.
I'll buy that. I think they're on the list of teams kind of like the Boise States of the world were last year.
Well, listen, if I had to put money on it, I would not a lot of money, but I would bet some money that Tulane could make a playoff next year. Not in the sense that like same way Boise or
right.
Indiana did. Not like a Texas did. But I do think that they might win their conference. They almost went undefeated outside of OU and Kansas State last year. I think they lost 2 games. Those were the only 2 ranked games. But I think they could have won those games. And had they won those games and went undefeated, I think they're in a playoff spot. And I think they could do that this year.
They're probably in the Arizona spot if Arizona, loses one more game.
Yeah. I think be on the lookout for Tulane Green Waves. Hey, anybody, the 3 people that are watching this, you want to make some money, bet on Tulane next year.
You heard it from the man himself. Bet on Tulane. Our resident ball knower told you all to bet on Tulane.
Go Roll Wave. That's their thing.
All right. Well, I think I'm good, man. Are you good?
I'm good.
All right. Well, hey, until next time, we'll see you guys on Friday, maybe, depending on some schedule changes. I'll let you guys know about that because, somebody has a life he has to handle as well. So we will let you guys know. But in the meantime, y'all have a great rest of y'all's week, and we'll see you later. Bye.
I ain't with the beefing on the net.